ভিসি রোডে নিয়েছে তো? রেজন কিসের অসুবিধা হচ্ছে এখানে? এখানে রেজন মোবাইল প্রিন্ট আউট দিচ্ছি তো।
ওটা না স্যার, ওটা বলবে তো,
ও তো এখানেও বলতে পারবে।
এখানে তো বলতে পারবে
মাইক্রোফোনে।
বলে এখানে আসতে বলছে। বলে এখানে চলে এসো।
এখানে আমি যখন মাইক্রোফোনে বলবো,
যেমন মাইক্রোফোনে বলে ও বলে যে ভিসি লেখাটা নিয়ে চলে আসতে বলে।
চিরন্তন বাবু বলবে।
হ্যাঁ বলবে, তা চিরন্তন
দুজনকে এখানে চলে আসতে।
সেটা আরে মডারেটর কই?
নিচে আছে।
আরে ওই মেয়েটি থাকবে না?
কণিকা আছে, নীলাঞ্জনাও আছে, ওরা আসেনি তো।
এসছে।
তুমি আর চিরন্তন দা ওই ওপরে চলে এসো, প্রিন্সিপাল স্যার ঘরে আছে, এখান থেকেই বলা যাবে।
এখানে থেকে বলে দিচ্ছি, অসুবিধা নেই।
না এখানে চলে এসো, এখানে চলে এসো। এখানে চলে এসো, এখানে চলে এসো। আমি এখানে এসেছি, পরে যাবো।
কোথায় স্যার, আপনার রুমে?
না
সেমিনার রুম।
সেমিনার রুম, হ্যাঁ ওইখানে। এই ক্যামেরা যে যখন কথা বলে তাকে ক্যামেরা ফোকাস করবে, যে বলবে তার দিকে ক্যামেরা ফোকাস করবে। যিনি যে উনি ওখান থেকে বলবে তখন ওখানে ক্যামেরা ফোকাস করবে। আর ইউটিউবটা নিয়েছো তো আজকের লিঙ্কটা?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ।
এসছেন উনি? এখন যখন দীপক বললে দীপককে ফোকাস করবে, ঠিক আছে? একটু ক্যামেরা ওইটা চালু লিঙ্কটা, নাহলে মহাবসাদকে রাখুন এখানে। মহাবসাদ ল্যাপটপটা দেখুন, মহাবসাদ ও ক্যামেরাটা ঘোরাতে পারছে।
ছেলে মেয়েদের লিঙ্ক সেট করে দিলেই ওরা জানে। কলেজ গ্রুপে দেখান দিয়ে সব টিচারদের মানে সব গ্রুপে দিয়ে সব স্টুডেন্টদের
কলেজ গ্রুপে দেওয়া আছে, লিঙ্ক দেওয়া আছে, মানে সবাইকে জয়েন হতে বলবে। লিখে দিয়ে দাও, ওখানে গ্রুপে লিখে দাও। এখানে
এই মাইক্রোফোন
এখানে এসে আমার পাশ পাশে বসে থাকবে। যারা আসেনি তাদের
শুরু করলাম।
হ্যাঁ, এখন এরা দিকে ফোকাস করবে, যখন আমার ওটা পড়ে ফোন করবে।
Good morning. Celebration of World Philosophy Day 2023. Today International Seminar on Social and Political Philosophy, sponsored by Indian Council of Philosophical Research, organized by Department of Philosophy in collaboration with IQAC, Asannagar MMT College. First of all, I would request to Dr. Rizwan Ahmed, IQAC coordinator of Asannagar MMT College, to deliver his welcome address.
কিভাবে জয়েন করাবে একটু দেখে দাও তো।
8 জন আছে।
ক্যামেরা ঠিক করবে। এখানে বললে ভালো হবে।
এখানে বল।
ওখানে বলবে ক্যামেরাটা ওখানে ফোকাস করবে।
তো জয়েন কি এখান থেকে করানো যাবে?
হ্যাঁ আমি করেছি, জয়েন আমি করেছি। আমি এখানে জয়েন করেছি।
ফোকাস হয়ে গেছে।
Good morning to everyone. Honorable President, respected Principal and dear students. A warm welcome to everyone gathered here on the second day of the two-day international seminar on social and political philosophy, sponsored by Indian Council of Philosophical Research (ICPR), organized by the Department of Philosophy in collaboration with the IQAC, Asannagar MMT College. A special welcome to our esteemed speakers, Dr. Tuhin Bhattacharya, Assistant Professor, Department of Philosophy, DePaul University, Chicago; Dr. Dipayan Pattanayak, Professor, Department of Philosophy, Jadavpur University; Professor Rakesh Tomar, Department of Physical Education, University of Petroleum and Minerals, Saudi Arabia; Mr. Dayamai Maji, Assistant Professor, Department of Philosophy, Bankura University. As the coordinator of IQAC and joint organizing secretary of this significant seminar, it is truly an honor to be here with you. Today's session builds upon the foundation laid on the inaugural day, continuing our exploration into the profound realms of social and political philosophy. Beyond being a convergence of minds, this seminar is a dynamic intellectual journey where ideas are cultivated, perspectives refined, and knowledge generously shared. In my capacity as the coordinator of IQAC, I am truly delighted to witness the ongoing commitment to academic excellence that this seminar embodies. As the joint organizing secretary, I extend my sincere gratitude to the organizing committee, our esteemed speakers, and each participant who has played a crucial role in shaping the success of this seminar. The diverse sub-themes spanning from the concept of freedom to the socio-political philosophy of classical Indian thought continue to showcase the richness and depth of ideas that we aim to explore. In the spirit of learning, I encourage each one of you to actively participate, engage in discussions, and make the most of this valuable opportunity to expand your intellectual horizons. Thank you once again, and let the intellectual journey of this second day unfold with enthusiasm and shared wisdom.
Thank you. Next, I would like to request Dr. Chirantan Sarkar of Asannagar MMT College to deliver the message of Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Kolkata.
It is with the utmost delight that I extend my cordial salutations and most felicitous wishes to the eminent orchestrators, participants and attendees of the forthcoming International Seminar on Social and Political Philosophy, slated to transpire on the 28th and 29th February 2024. I commend the collaborative efforts of the Department of Philosophy, Asannagar College, IQAC, Asannagar MMT College, conceiving this intellectually enriching event. Furthermore, it is with great pleasure that I acknowledge the importance of extended by the Indian Council of Research, IQAC, whose patronage has undoubtedly augmented academic and scholarly prestige of this seminar. The exploration and deliberation of themes within the domain of social and political philosophy are of paramount significance in contemporary intellectual panorama. This seminar provides a forum for erudite discourses, critical analysis, and exchange of profound insights, thereby contributing to the enrichment of our collective knowledge and understanding in this imperatively consequential philosophical inquiry. I harbor the conviction that this seminar will serve as an intellectual crucible, fostering the synthesis of perspectives and the generation of innovative ideas, thereby propelling the frontiers of scholarship in social and political philosophy. I express my heartfelt gratitude to all those involved in the conceptualization, organization, and execution of this seminal event, your dedication and steadfast commitment to the pursuit of knowledge and academic excellence are truly commendable. May the deliberations and discussions during the seminar be intellectually invigorating and yield scholarly insights that reverberate far beyond the confines of this esteemed assembly. Wishing the today International Seminar on Social and Political Philosophy resounding success and a fulsome exchange of ideas. Warm regards, Professor Amulendu Bhuiya, Vice Chancellor, Kolkata University.
এটাও যাবে ওটাও যাবে।
I would request to Sri Parthiprotim Bandyopadhyay, Department of English, Asannagar MMT College. Please come on the stage for chair for this session.
Request accepted. Thank you.
Next, today our first speaker is Dr. Tuhin Bhattacharya. He is an assistant professor, Department of Philosophy at DePaul University. He was educated in both India and the US, receiving his doctoral degree from the Department of Comparative Literature at New York University as a Henry A. McCracken Fellow in 2023. I request him to present his paper titled Materialism and Gender Politics in Shankho Philosophy. Sir, please.
পিন করো। এই ক্যামেরাটাকে ঘুরিয়ে দাও না। ক্লোজ করো। ঠিক আছে। একটু পুরো বোর্ডটা দেখাও, পুরো বোর্ডটা দেখাও। হ্যাঁ, ওখানে যদি কিছু ভিউ থাকে এরকম থাকে। বলো, মাইকে বলো।
Hello, sorry I got disconnected. Can you all hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that introduction and for inviting me to speak here. Thanks in particular to Dr. Shomen Pal, who invited me, and Shomen and I go back a long way. We are very dear friends. Our friendship goes back a long way back to our college time in several years ago. So I'm very happy to be here, and thanks to the Department of Philosophy as well for inviting me for this talk. I'll be speaking on materialism and the politics of gender in Sankhya philosophy. So one of the central philosophical motives in Western thought since antiquity has been the opposition between matter and that which is or alone theological doctrines of a creator God ordering the universe out of primal undifferentiated chaos. Some of the most defining moments in the history of Western philosophy can be understood in terms of a fundamental dichotomy between matter as that which passively undergoes transformation and an active principle, variously named logos, reason, soul, mind, thought, form, spirit, or history, that is the agent of that transformation. I'm thinking here, for instance, of Aristotle's distinction between hule and morphe, that is matter and form, the Kantian opposition between nature and freedom, and also Hegel's understanding of matter, where material dialectical processes are organized towards the unfolding of the spirit. In my talk today, however, I turn instead to the theorization of matter in the ancient Sankhya school of Indian philosophy to challenge this understanding of matter as passive and inert. I also investigate the politics of gender in Sankhya metaphysics and try to deconstruct that politics by identifying moments of rupture or internal contradictions in the system. Sankhya, as many of you know, is a dualist system that developed in the early centuries of the Common Era, though its roots can be traced back to Vedic literature. And the oldest extant systematic text of the tradition is Ishwara Krishna's Sankhya Karika, written sometime the 4th to 6th centuries CE, which is the text I'll focus on today. As a dualist philosophy, Sankhya poses and the feminine Prakriti or matter as the two eternal, uncaused and independent metaphysical realities that unite to produce the phenomenal world. The masculine Purusha in this system is entirely passive, so radically different from the Western tradition. Is passive, immobile and incapable of regeneration, while the feminine Prakriti is active, mobile and fecund, but non-conscious. When Purusha, the principle of pure consciousness, gets entangled in Prakriti's allure and forgets his independence, creation emanates. Prakriti's task is to provide enjoyment to Purusha through creation, since dukkha or suffering is the very nature of the created world, Prakriti enables Purusha to discover his true independent identity and ultimately liberate himself from her confinement. The actions of the non-conscious feminine Prakriti are therefore entirely for the sake of the masculine conscious Purusha. And once he attains liberation, Prakriti withdraws into her unmanifest or avyakta form. Like a shy female dancer, the text says, nartaki, like a dance before her male spectator. The dualism between Purusha and Prakriti is, however, not to be conflated with the mind-body dualism of Western philosophy. Both mind and body, as well as the intellect, ego, thoughts, language, are in fact squarely on the side of Prakriti or matter in the Sankhya system. A multiplicity of Purushas. It provides both a theory of being and a theory of the subject, or the universe through the entire. It describes how a Purusha becomes embodied of which it is a part. Sankhya is the non-dualist philosophy of Shankaracharya's Advaita Vedanta, which posits Brahman as the only reality and the created world as mere illusion, Maya, as well as from the Buddhist doctrines of Anatta, non-self, and Shunyata, emptiness, that refer to the non-being of the self. On the other hand, in consistently refusing to reduce itself to a materialist monism, Sankhya steers clear from aligning itself with the Charvaka school of ancient India. The irreducible dualism between Purusha and Prakriti is precisely what grants Sankhya its unique position in the Indian philosophical system. Purusha is usually translated as consciousness in English, while Prakriti is rendered as matter. But these two Sanskrit terms do not neatly translate into the Western lexicon. Purusha in Sankhya is entirely passive, immobile, incapable of generation, but he is non-material and conscious. Prakriti, on the other hand, is active, fecund, and perpetually self-moving, but material and non-conscious. They exist as distinct principles unaware of each other outside of ordinary space and time until Purusha gets entangled in Prakriti's allure and forgets his own independent identity. Prior to this interaction, before this interaction, Prakriti is in her primal, imperceptible form known as Mula Prakriti, primordial matter, or Avyakta, the unmanifest, while her created, perceptible form is called Vyakta, the manifest. At some point, when it is not clear how, Prakriti feels the presence of Purusha. The catalytic presence of Purusha excites Prakriti to materialize herself in the form of the created world for the sake of Purusha's enjoyment, upabhogam. Stupefied by the beauty of creation, Purusha forgets himself in Prakriti's embrace, begins to revel in the manifold flowering of the world, and behaves as if he were Prakriti. That is, as if he were a corporeal being thrown into the material universe. However, Prakriti's purpose is not to keep Purusha enchained forever. The enjoyment of the world also brings with it the inevitability of dukkha, suffering. Prakriti dedicates herself to liberating Purusha from material entrapment, suffering, by enabling him to remember his forgotten essence. The primary aim of Sankhya philosophy, therefore, is the salvation of Purusha through Vyakta Vijnana, that is, the discriminative knowledge of the Vyakta and the Avyakta. Once Purusha becomes aware of this knowledge, that is, once Purusha becomes conscious, female dancer, the text says, is embarrassed by the exposure and withdraws once again into her unmanifest form, leading to Purusha's liberation. The interaction between Purusha and Prakriti thus takes place through scenes of desire, entanglement, and discomfiture. Unlike earlier conceptions of a cosmic Purusha, something that we find for instance in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, classical Sankhya acknowledges a plurality of Purushas, and Prakriti's interaction with each of them is what creates distinct beings. The transformation of Prakriti is therefore described in the Karika from the perspective of an individual being. The tradition argues that Purusha and Prakriti are to be seen as gendered metaphysical principles. Every man and woman and everything else in the manifest universe is an embodied manifestation of Prakriti. Purusha exists outside of creation as a different order of reality that only passively witnesses the transformation of Prakriti into the manifest world. This transformation is Rajas and Tamas, whereby subtler or rarer material of Purusha and Prakriti gives birth, firstly, that is the intellect. It would otherwise be difficult to explain how a material entity in the world, say an animal or a stone, could be produced by the intellect or the mind. Western philosophical dualisms can be neatly mapped onto the distinction between Purusha and Prakriti. Since Sankhya refuses any ontological distinction between mind and matter or thought and extension, they are all different modes of Prakriti's self-revelation. Even when interpreted from a phenomenological perspective, it is important to remember that Sankhya acknowledges several levels or dimensions of materiality, each of which is dynamic, volatile, and constantly transforming into that which is other than itself. But Sankhya is also not a philosophy of physical reductionism. Thought, our mind and our thoughts, for instance, are a very subtle manifestation of matter, but it cannot be located to the gross elements. As the first cause, Karana, of the material universe, manifests everything that is created, including matter, mind, energy, time and space. Since nothing comes from nothing, the phenomenality of the universe is always latent in Prakriti, even in the state of absolute dissolution, Pranaya. Perpetual motion, change and activity are her fundamental characteristics, as she unites, sustains and disintegrates elements that form manifest reality. It is not possible to create something new, nor to destroy something completely, as both creation and annihilation are just stages in Prakriti's evolutionary cycles. Both natural and technological productions are only manifestations, abhivyakti, of what is already latent in Prakriti. The growth of things and organisms in the natural world, the transformation of the earth into a tree, for instance, or that of a caterpillar into a butterfly, as well as the eventual passing away, rotting, dying, are inherent to Prakriti's fundamental motility, dynamism, and regenerative power. The Karika then enumerates the 25 principles of Sankhyan system, the first two of course being Purusha and Mula Prakriti, both of them uncaused and outside conventional space-time. When Mula Prakriti comes into proximity with Purusha and the transformative process begins, the other 23 principles emerge. Unlike the first two, that is unlike Purusha and Prakriti, these 23 emergents are generated, spatial, temporal, unstable, composite, divisible and contingent. The first emergent, and therefore the first principle that is manifest, is buddhi, intellect. Buddhi is the phenomenal ground, the necessary structure or precondition, or the principle that it in turn creates, namely ahankara, the ego or the I, the first person. In the interpretation of Surendranath Dasgupta, the ego emerges when Purusha sees its reflection in the transparency of buddhi. So, Surendranath Dasgupta writes, buddhi resembles Purusha in transparency, and the Purusha fails to differentiate itself from the modifications of the buddhi. And as a result of this non-distinction, the Purusha becomes bound down to the Buddhi. So when Purusha sees this reflection in Buddhi, it thinks that as if it were Buddhi, right? There is a misidentification with its own reflection in matter, in Prakriti, as Buddhi. And that's how Purusha gets entangled in Prakriti. While Buddhi is pre-personal and the outside self-awareness, it is only with the emergence of the ego as a reflection in Buddhi that the process of Purusha's individuation into a differentiated self, an individual self, begins. In Karika 25 to 27, the ego then engages in a series of productions. It produces the group of 11 principles, namely Manas, the mind, the 5 Buddhendriyas or sense capacities, the 5 Karmendriyas or action capacities. The mind is the first to emerge as mind or Manas is the first to emerge as a medium of contact between the ego and the external or gross world. It is best understood as an organizing principle that arranges and brings to order the sensations and impulses received by the sense organs. The ego gives rise to the 5 tanmatras or subtle elements, which are again the traditional Western distinctions between body and mind, thought and extension do not work in the Sankhya system. Intellect, the ego, the mind, and language are as much manifestations of primordial materiality as are trees, stones, and houses. Even the gods, the Karika says, if they exist, are part of the modification and transformation of the gunas. Prakriti indeed encompasses all of creation. And that is from Brahma down to a blade of grass. Brahmadi Stamba Paryanta. That's what the Karika says in verse 94. Brahma down to a blade of grass. If thus far classical Sankhya seems to be akin to a kind of material monism, it is at this point that the comparison breaks down. The materialization of Prakriti into the cosmos is not possible, according to Sankhya, without the presence of Purusha. Even though Purusha plays no active role and is essentially unaffected by creation, its mere presence works as a catalyst for Prakriti to begin the generative process. Prakriti is an order of reality radically distinct from anything encompassed by Prakriti. While the feminine Prakriti is ungenerated but generative, the masculine Purusha is nothing to creation, but simply present as Sakshi, passive witness, or a Drashta, spectator. A spectator or witness to the transformation of primordial matter into the manifest world. While all of Prakriti's activity is only for the sake of Purusha, Purushartha. The existence of Purusha is necessary because the text says aggregates or combinations exist for another, and because of the need for a bhokta, an enjoyer or experiencer, to express, which is distinct not only from gross matter but also from subtle materiality of the intellect. Purusha is the name of this bare fact of consciousness, which is absolutely contentless, non-intentional, non-teleological, and inactive. The experience of the objective world, even in its subtle dimensions, requires the presence of an absolute consciousness that is apart from the world. Or without someone to experience it, the existence of an ostensibly rational and ordered cosmos would be ultimately meaningless. Purusha is thus the groundless ground, the very condition of possibility that, though itself non-material, not only enables matter to materialize out of its primordial concealment, but also fundamentally grants matter meaning and purpose. This schema, while bypassing the conventional Western dichotomies of mind, body, and thought extension, brings back the ghost in form of dualism and thereby reinstates the hierarchical binary between the subject and the object, albeit in crucially terms. As per the intellect and the mind, it is Prakriti that constitutes awareness, what is called Chitta Vritti. But this active intentional awareness is illuminated from behind as a rational and contentless light of Purusha or absolute consciousness. As that which it makes appear, Purusha's existence too can only be negatively inferred by what it is not, but nevertheless appears as. Sankhya in fact goes so far as to claim that Purusha's self-knowledge too does not technically take place within Purusha itself. So even Purusha's own self-knowledge does not take place within Purusha because Purusha is totally contentless. Even the ultimate discernment of its own nature, and therefore its radical otherness from Prakriti, does not appear within Purusha. Knowledge is experienced by Purusha as it appears in Buddhi, the intellect, as a negation of what Purusha is not. As this negative knowledge, as this negative knowledge dawns, it is not that crucially taking place within Prakriti, but witnessed by Purusha, that liberates Purusha from its misidentification with it. This does not imply it discards the material body. In fact, having discerned its true nature, Purusha can continue its association with the body, yet experience the world with complete detachment. But once it separates from the body, that is, it attains final isolation, kaivalyam, and is liberated from the cycles of birth and death because of this knowledge. We must note, however, that Purusha, in reality, is always free. And hence both bondage and liberation are only phenomenal in the Sankhyan system. Purusha is never actually entangled in Prakriti, but only appears to be so because of the mistaken identification with its own reflection in the intellect. However, if Purusha's self-realization, that is its discernment of its ontological difference from Prakriti, happens only after the two interact, how should one conceive the state of Purusha's self-awareness prior to this interaction? Does Purusha know itself at all before creation ensues? According to Sankhya, it would be possible to speak of Purusha's self-identity in a meaningful way prior to this interaction. Since only when the avyakta begins its materialization as the vyakta, time and space and the image. Even the Purusha and non-material by its very itself as dependent and material, leading to precisely in order then lies its lunar through a negative discernment. In other words, Purusha must become what it is not in order to be what it always has been. I will repeat this. In other words, Purusha must become what is not in order to be what it always has been. Am I frozen in the video? Can everyone hear me clearly? I see myself kind of frozen on the screen in the conference.